So I'm going to go through this. So originally Lenny was going to do this. He's an asset manager for New York Power Authority and has been there for a long time and recently got involved on the, has been involved on the mobile side and recently got involved with the mobile as it relates to data splice and changing that. So the two use cases that we did for New York Power Authority was the line patrol and vegetation management use cases, and that played into New York Power Authority's future strategy. And so just to give you a little bit of background on the New York Power Authority, they are the largest state-owned power organization. They've been around for a long time, since 1931, and they developed the hydroelectric resources of the St. Lawrence River. So I've been to both Niagara Falls and their St. Lawrence site, and it's quite impressive as far as how much power that stuff generates. So the turbines, I think, at the Niagara plant, which they have 13 of them, I think they generate somewhere in the vicinity of almost 300 horsepower. And so it's extremely powerful how much energy those things can create, especially if you've seen them all 13, turned on at the same time. And NYPA operates with 18 different generating facilities, and they have more than 1,400 miles of transmission lines. NYPA is low cost, supports many jobs statewide. So a lot of those remote areas, there's very large, different types of assets, large power plants and switch yards that they have to deal with, and those are, strategically located throughout the New York area. Well, Ilya, why don't you're going to be way more qualified to talk about NYPA. I know a lot about your organization, but I would prefer if you talk. So.
Yes, so NYPA has 7 generating facilities spread out throughout the whole New York State. One is in St. Lawrence, Clark Energy Sufficiency. There's our transmission lines. Niagara is another power plant. And we have Gilboa, which is a small power plant. And we have 2 generating facilities as 500 megawatts and small clean power plants. Our headquarters are located in White Plains, New York. Illuminating the path to digital utility. Well, our president, Gil Quinones, is trying to make the NYPA the first end-to-end digital utility in the United States. Okay, NYPA's strategic vision is on our path towards becoming the first end-to-end digital utility in the country. We're redesigning how we manage our assets, helping our customers adapt in an ever-demanding business environment, and utilizing innovative digital technology. There's 6 strategic visions, and one, as you can see, asset management falls into our infrastructure modernization. And the way that it works, we have the data coming in the funnel. What we're trying to do is make everything reliable, consistent, and available information. Where the data comes in, it's getting deciphered into asset management and into digital utilities.
One big thing, and being a part of the NYPA project and being with their team for a little over about a year and a half right now. The big goal of theirs is to take the data that they're collecting in the field and make it reliable and consistent across all departments. In the past, maybe one asset up here is in good shape, maybe an asset in a different location is rated on a scale of 1 to 5, and maybe another location is rating the asset on some different metric. NYPA is really trying to make that information consistent across the organization. And a big piece of that is having a reliable single user interface, such as Data Splice, to integrate with all the different systems that they have, because they have several different systems that they use to manage that, and have an efficient way to collect that data across the board. The next thing we want to do is actually get into the software. And so the first use case we're going to get into is Line Patrol. And Line Patrol was a use case we started last June building the application. It's a very good iterative process, and it essentially starts from the map. We're replacing an IntelliTrack replacement that had a similar solution that was old and outdated, so that's what we came into to change. So Mr. Mike Johnson is going to go ahead and take over from here and give you a short demo on the Line Patrol application. Lenny, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, we're moving towards a digitized company, and asset management is one of our strategic initiatives, and Data Splice is going to be helping us with our data consistency efforts around how we collect data and use it for our asset information strategic initiative around managing the life cycle of the asset. If there's any questions at the end, I'd be more than happy to answer around NYPA's use of Data Splice.
Thanks, Lenny. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Lenny. Thanks, Nate. Hi, everyone. This is Mike Johnson with DataSplice. I'm sharing my screen now, and hopefully everyone is seeing a DataSplice screen that has Line Patrol. At the top is the first button. Essentially, what we've set up for this particular use case is when a user logs in, DataSplice will, based on the site they're a member of in Maximo, it's going to run a bunch of queries behind the scenes and download information to that device pertinent to that user's site. So when a user logs in, they'll see a download progress. It usually takes a minute or two to grab all of the information that they need. When that completes, they can click on OK. And then from here, you're seeing some extra sections in here because I'm logged in as an administrator. But essentially, all the tech has to do is click on Line Patrol. And what DataSplice will do is based on that information that it downloaded to the device, it runs a query, basically looking for their line transmission assets. And it will, based on the first record that it finds in the list, that's where it navigates them to on the map. And so that's what we're seeing here is behind the scenes up here at the top, I'm sitting on the first record of essentially 14,000 assets. And that's basically where it takes me. Based on the colors that we're seeing here, I can tell that this line's already been inspected, and I'm going to go through some of that with all of you. But I wanted to cover a little bit about sort of just the basic map behavior that we've got built in here. Up in the upper left corner, we have a plus and minus sign. These are zoom in and zoom out features for our map. So I'm just going to click on one of those so you can see that happening. Being able to change your zoom levels to see finer grain detail is important when we have to get into scenarios where we're trying to click on individual trees and things. And another option that we have in here is this square button that's showing up. This is actually a multi-select option that I'll show here in a little bit too. But zooming out and being able to see more features on the map makes this multi-select feature very useful. And over on the right side of the map, we've got some buttons here that at the top is base map images that we are enabling behind the map, as well as the layers that we are pulling in from your GIS server. In this case, DataSplice is integrating with both with Maximo and Esri at the same time. So we're querying all of the asset and location data from Maximo, and we're also querying these layers from Esri and dynamically linking that data up behind the scenes in DataSplice to show a context-sensitive map. As the user's looking at this information, they can turn layers off. So here I just clicked on towers and I can see those turn off, turn them back on. Depending on what the user wants to see at that time and is available to them, they have some options there for controlling what's showing up on their map currently. The next button down here that I want to show is the legend. This is also configurable. We basically use a flavor of HTML that we embed into our map configurations to show this legend. Whatever it is we want to show in here, pretty much can. So we can get very colorful and context-based with the maps that we're showing to the end users. So in here I can see some various colors. The green means stuff that's been inspected and passed. Red means stuff that was inspected and failed. In the case of the towers and spans, the blue towers have not been inspected yet. The orange spans have not been inspected yet, and we'll see some color changes here in a second. This just, allows the user to get a reminder of what it is they're looking at if they don't remember the details on the map. This third button here is where am I? When you're on a device that is that's receiving latitude, longitude coordinates, whether that be from tower triangulation or if you've got a GPS chip in it. That's where it's getting the latitude, longitude. What DataSplice can do is essentially centers the map on where you physically are, and as you move, the map moves. Operators out in the field are driving down these lines, the map can move with them. One of the features that we've put in for ease of use for these folks that are out in the field and as they're doing these inspections day to day is a quick jump to where did I leave off from yesterday? And essentially we have that here in this find option. So here I'm going to select show me my last inspected. And essentially what DataSplice does, it navigates to the last asset that we looked at. So I can see here on my map, I'm going to close the little text bubble here. Here's the last tower that I looked at, and I can continue on with my inspection. A couple of different ways that users can perform those inspections. The first of which is I can simply click on the asset or tap on it on a touchscreen. I'll see it change to purple. That shows me that it's selected. And up in the menu bar, we've put in some pass-fail options for them. So maybe I want to say that this span has passed. So I click on that. Behind the scenes, what DataSplice is doing is not only does it set that asset to pass, it says, hey, I've inspected it, we're good, let's move on. It's also auto-filling in several meter readings that are associated to the assets such that each corresponding meter reading gets a pass. So the next one, I'm going to click on a tower here. I had clicked on this span and hit pass. So what I'm going to do here on this tower, and I'll just show another example here. I clicked on this tower so I can see it turned purple when I clicked on it. I'm going to click fail on this one so we can actually see the meter readings for that show up. What DataSplice does here behind the scenes is, like I was just mentioning with the pass, it just autofills in pass and you move on, and you don't have to touch the form behind it. In the case of failures, what it'll do is it preloads the meter readings with pass, and then it shows me the available options here, and I picked the one that had the problem. So in this case, I'm going to pick this insulator, and I'll say fail. For that failure, DataSplice is asking me what failed. Maybe the insulator was flashed, so I'm just going to type in flashed. I say OK. It changes that to a fail. I click on done. And in my map, I can see that the tower then changes to red to indicate a failure. Right? So those are two common ways for them to do their pass fails. They can essentially just click on the asset and hit the button. The other option that I want to show here that we've given them is oftentimes as these techs are driving down the line, they can literally inspect multiple spans and towers fairly quickly. At a pass, they can get through a couple of spans, so maybe they want to be able to use our multi-select feature and actually highlight a region on the map. I'll see the features change to show what's been selected, and then I can click on Pass Selected. DataSplice will let me know how many features I'm actually passing, and I say yes, and it can swing through and do all of them at once. And so behind the scenes for all of those spans and all of those towers, it's entering in all the meter readings. In the event that maybe one of these towers or spans had a problem, I can pass everything, then I can come back to a particular tower and click on it. Then I can fail them individually. Even after I've done sort of a mass pass on a group, I can come back to one of those, click on it, and say fail and enter a failure. Just going to toss one in here real quick. Again, click on done when I'm finished entering in the details. Essentially, this allows the techs to just navigate down the lines doing their inspections of the spans and towers. As part of that inspection process, we also have a scenario where they're looking for potential danger trees. As part of that data set that we've downloaded from Esri, NIPA has a LiDAR layer that actually is produced by a flyover of these lines with a helicopter that's doing photography and analysis of the canopies of the trees along the lines. That LiDAR can actually identify all of the potential trees essentially ahead of time, making it much easier for the techs out in the field as they're driving along these spans to simply know, they already kind of know where to go to look at the trees and do their evaluations. Those LiDAR points are what we're seeing along the spans here in red, these little circles. And earlier when I was talking about being able to zoom in to click on individual features, that's what I was sort of alluding to here. So as part of what the techs are responsible for, not only are they looking at the span in general as well as towers, but they're also doing the identification of these possible danger trees. And what we want them to do when they're out there for those is they can click on a tree. It will open up the information. LiDAR's provided the latitude, longitude of where that tree's at, its height, some of those basic values, and it's up to the tech then to specify its priority when it should be removed. What we've got set up is anything that's a P1 or above will actually get a work order created for it to come remove the tree. So we want the priority, species, and diameter. And the reason the species and diameter are important, as this information is reported back and gathered into the system, they need to have a good idea of the job costing involved on the tree removal. And not only does the size matter in terms of how much effort it's going to take to remove, but it can also make a difference on the cost if they have to purchase that tree from a landowner. But with those key factors entered in, we'll see on the map, the color of the tree will change. So in this case, it's turned blue, so I can tell that I've specified the priority and species for that tree. That's what that color indication does for me. The other thing that I can do here is I can change my selection type to be by tree. This is to tell DataSplice when I'm doing the multi-select, when I'm using my little rectangle to grab a hold of features on the map, it knows what types of features I want to grab a hold of. So in this case, I'm telling it I just want to grab trees. What this allows me to do is I can say group selected. And in our drop-down, I can associate these to essentially a single work order. So I can grab a whole group of trees on a span and put them on a single work order to get created. Now DataSplice is, what it's throwing up here is a quick prompt just reminding me that the trees that are in light blue still need to have their species and diameter specified. But we can see those symbols change here on the map. That's what the techs are out there and doing, is capturing that tree information along with the line inspection. All of this data is then pushed back into Maximo at the end of the day or end of the week, as the case may be, depending on how long they're out in the field. And for all of the trees that were identified and grouped by span, we're creating work orders to then come out and deal with those. That's a quick, just a quick look at what we've got going on. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to show here really fast is in the symbols here, I can see on this tower, it's got a W on it. I'm just going to click on that tower real quick. The other thing that we've added in here is the ability to see backlog work orders out in the field. Just wanted to show that real quick. And I will now turn it back over.
All right, so the next piece we're going to show here and talk a little bit about is the operator rounds project for NYPA. Essentially what NYPA had in place was they had an IntelliTrack product, which later became some different organizations, and they had it in place for about 13 years or so. And so the technology became outdated. It was based on some old Windows devices. They started having, freeze-up issues, and the flexibility wasn't there. It didn't integrate with Maximo. So it had served its purpose, but essentially it was like data kind of on its own without all the potential integrations. So what they liked about DataSplice was the ability to pull all of those inspections into a new application, but not necessarily lose the history. So you can imagine over 13 years they collected a lot of really good history on these assets, which helps them prevent potential breakdowns, helps them maintain it more efficiently, and start trying to analyze some of those trends, giving the tech the ability to analyze those trends in the field. So you don't need to go back and look at a bunch of previous reports. You can say, what's this history of this asset look like right now? So a big thing was keeping that history and pulling it over. DataSplice also converted the forms from their existing product to DataSplice. So we took over the original forms, imported them into DataSplice. So we essentially went through all 200 plus forms, some of them being 400 plus readings, and went through with the operators and refined those forms, because there's assets that are retired. There's questions that don't make sense. There's analog meters versus digital meters, and they copied the old analog meter type asset to inspect the new type of asset, and they just dealt with it as they're going. They didn't necessarily have the ability to quickly change that stuff. So, and what type of inspections are they doing? It's anything from general plant readings to turbine type inspections to service station inspections, switchyard inspections, SF6 gas inspections, and then things as simple as, just fire extinguisher and eyewash inspections, which from NYPA's standpoint, they're easy things to do, but when you print out 30 work orders, you're managing a huge facility, you distribute that to the operators, and then you come back and scan those and create a work order manually if needed. You can imagine the time that it consumes, as well as the frustration from the end users in the field, just knowing there's a more efficient way to do that.
I think Ilya alluded to in the beginning that one of the efforts NYPA is doing is building out an M&D center to collect a lot of the asset information to help us see our assets in real time with sensors. But in addition to that, we're also collecting inspection data. And previously, a lot of that data, unfortunately, was collected but put into PDF format as attachments into Maximo, which, as we all know, is a little difficult to analyze when you're trying to do some kind of predictive analytics on it. With the use of DataSplice, we can now capture the data in a digital format, collect it, move it into Maximo, and then take the data out of Maximo, move it into our M&D centers, where that data will then be used to help us make better decisions on our assets and how they're performing. From an inspection standpoint, this is a big move for us to start collecting this in a more uniform fashion. So thank you, Nate.
That's a great point, and a huge initiative from, what Ilya was saying with their CEO, and everybody essentially in the organization is bought into this as far as an initiative for NYPA. So very powerful. I'm going to go ahead and just get into the demo here. So what you're seeing here is essentially what an operator or a supervisor would see. Somebody who's actually helping manage the operators and responsible for the inspections and managing the plant. Like I said, there's all type of inspections they have in here. The views that the super users have, they have an edit inspections and an edit assignments view. made it really simple. You know, we don't want you to have to go to a lot of places to get that. So essentially it's just right here with one view. They also have a history view, so they can view historical assets as well as trends on those assets. So what this allows the supervisor to do is create an unlimited number of forms with or without integration of Maximo. They can take existing forms and clone them, or they can use templates and create a new form from those templates, or they can just create a new form from scratch. And they can manage all of these inspections from one user interface. The way we have it for NYPA is we have different sites. We have the inspections allocated per site, and then we can even refine that further down to the area that the user is inspecting. They all run a little bit differently. So one of the challenges with NYPA is we had to make sure we're hitting the processes for each department and meeting their workflow type requirement. So when you're a super user here, you can go to the Edit Inspections view. It allows you to see all of the inspections you have for a site. So if you just wanted to see all the draft status inspections in here, you'd be able to see those. It lets you look at a blank report of that inspection. We don't want to lose the ability to show that PDF, and that just shows you what a unfilled out PDF would look like. And it also, I'll just show you what that looks like, has the reading, what the pick list is, and if there's alarms, it'll show those on there as well. And so they can see how a form looks and, you know, present that to the users. And then they also quickly have the ability to modify the reading. So they can get in, look at a particular inspection, and then look at the reading. From here, they have the ability to add additional readings. They can group them together in different groups, and they can also manage the alarms. So I'll show you the alarms here as actually part of an execution of a form. But the alarms could say, is this over a certain value? Or if this question shows, we need to make sure that this question shows, and we have some sort of calculation based on that. It's really depends on how the plan is run and what assets they're dealing with. We also have the ability to add default values and calculations. So essentially anything they want to capture in the field, we can quickly analyze and really show that. And I'll also show you our chart view, which allows the end user to view the information historically in a chart to, you know, help them trend that data and know where things have gone. So after they build this form out, they have the ability to test it in here to make sure it works. From there, they can easily modify the status to put it into another status so that the individual operators can get in and test those forms. So that's the supervisor role. The real powerful things, as I had mentioned, they have the ability to modify inspections without getting into an administration client, right from the user interface, and it's very precise. We have a lot of tools that can help you create new inspections efficiently, copy readings, copy alarms. All of the functionality is there to help that be more efficient. So that's the supervisor side. The other piece here that I have is I actually have an iPad. So when the user logs in, it automatically syncs their data. And so this indicator up here is the user that you are offline, you're disconnected. Important thing about that is the user can take all the data they need. I'm talking about work orders, historical data, assigned inspections, everything offline right onto the device. So they can be out in the middle of the Adirondacks and not have to worry about having a connection. These are also 4G tablets, so they have the ability to connect when a cell phone is signal. And it's Verizon, so it actually does work pretty reliably. Also can connect to Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi. So pretty secure on the NYPA side. We don't really have to deal with that. So what the operator sees is they see this top set of views here. So they have the assigned alarms, assigned inspections, inspection history, and inspection alarms. So generally the view they're going to go into is the assigned inspections view. What that's going to do is it's going to show all of the inspections that they have to deal with. If they want, they can limit it down to a specific area. So for this one, let's say I just want to look at LPGP inspections or maybe the Robert Moses inspections, something along those lines, and then I can see all of those inspections right from there. I can also filter it out and see the remaining part of the inspection. I have the ability to filter on this field and do, basically modify whatever I see on the screen pretty easily. So I'm going to go ahead and select an inspection here and do the outside service station inspection. All they have to do is hit begin inspection. It's going to render the form. So depending on how long the form is, I think this one's around 100 questions, it'll render that form, all the readings, all the history, any work orders associated with those readings will all get rendered at this time. So you can see in the background it put the inspection into in progress. What it does here, you have this top question. It asks you if this asset is in service. We automatically default it to in service so the questions show. If it's out of service, we can hit out of service right here, and it'll pull the questions away that we don't want. Just because something's out of service doesn't mean we don't still want to capture, color of certain temperatures, oil levels, different things along those lines. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is in service, and I can go through and start answering these questions. So are the sump pump, is the base sump pump controls normal? Yes. So it fills that in. You can notice the timestamp and the date stamp right there. You can record the oil level, so depending on where it is, that is right in the middle. It won't fire an alarm. If you did the temperature, though, however, if it's over 90 degrees, they want to be notified. So if you do 78, that's going to be a good reading. If you do 91, however, it's set up to alarm on that. So you do 91, it says, make sure the air bank fans are in service, submit a work order if a need, and then, notify the your supervisor or whoever is on shift there that's appropriate. So you'd enter your remarks, and then you also have the ability to create a work order. The work order, it goes into waiting approval. Go ahead and test this work order. One thing the users loved is you can take a picture, right there from your device. And so they have the ability to do that out in the field. Once they take that picture, they can mark it up and do, various things that they would on that picture. So if they wanted to highlight an area, they can do all that right from the device. Or this work order is automatically synced up as part of this. So that's one thing. I'm going to show two more things quickly. When I close out of the form, it tells me which inspection points, which readings I didn't complete and that they're required. We give them the ability to do that. So for instance, if you want to go to a different inspection, such as this auto banks, you can continue someone else's inspection. So then it has someone else's timestamp on it and the questions they answered. So it gives them a lot of flexibility over their shifts to make sure that work is, you have continuity of work. You're not creating new inspections. You're using the same inspection. And then the last piece I want to show you is just a real simple inspection. So this eye wash, very, it's to be applicable to fire stations. We created all 10 of their forms in a matter of minutes to help manage this. And they said, wow, if we would have had that for the last, 4 years, we could have saved so much paper, efficiency, and time. And that's some of the things that outside of the readings and stuff that you can create. And actually, the one other thing I wanted to show was the charting, and then I'll be done with this part. So you can actually click on a reading in the field, and you can get the chart reading. So it'll show you the last 10 days of readings. So you can see we've been doing, this is not real data, this is just test data. You can see the readings we've been capturing. And the users love that. They can click on a reading, know what it was last time, and they just wanted 10 days in the field. If you wanted more, we can give you as much as they want. That was all that was necessary for their requirement. That's essentially how they perform the operator rounds out in the field with the end users. We're very excited to have this as part of the NIPA organization and continue expanding into the different areas with a similar platform as the rest of these applications. So that being said, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ilya, Lenny, Nate, and Mike for that presentation. Yes?
Ilya and I said you're welcome.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add to that before we close the presentation?
Does anyone have any questions regarding our use of Data Splice for NIPA?
So the question here in Nashville was, how long have you been using the Forms product?
The Data Splice we have been using for line patrol for almost, I would like to say 6 months. And operator rounds, we are going live with it at the end of next month.
How many end users do you have?
For line patrol, there's about 40 crew members. For the operator rounds, there's about 150 throughout the whole NIPA organization for right now.
And do we have any online questions? So if you have an online question, you can type that in, and we'll repeat the question and hopefully get it answered. Yes?
Is that past and chart readings a core Data Splice feature, or is that something that was custom built for NIPA?
So the charting that's part of our new product.
It's part of the product.
Yeah.
Or the new version of one?
Yeah, the charting is available through the new product. And you'll see a lot of those features. At the end of the day, we have a section that we're going to go through the new and exciting features of the UI of Data Splice.
I'm excited for that.
Obviously. And did you have another question? No?
The one point I just wanted to stress a little bit is, change management. We all know it's so important, but for line patrol in particular, our line crew was integral in the development of this product with us, the forms, the flow, the sort of the business process. That helped us with the buy-in, which for the line crew was something that we knew we needed to do up front, because their job is not really to do these inspections all day long. It's really to fix our transmission system and keep it in good working order. So the fact that they had a lot of buy-in up front, they helped us design it. We were able to use it a lot more successfully if we just rolled it out to them and told them, go use it kind of thing. So the buy-in is very important.
We have a question. How do you integrate Esri, DataSplice, and Maximo?
Good question. We have in our server setup, we have plugins that are responsible for the communication between the various enterprise systems that we're talking to. So we have a Maximo plugin that allows us to communicate essentially via RMI to Maximo to make all the updates with. When it comes to downloading data, we actually just query that directly from the database, the Maximo database. For Esri, we're actually talking to the REST services. So in the case of how we're communicating there is we have a plugin, a map plugin that allows us to talk to the Esri servers, the GIS services that are there, and we're making HTML queries that will pull that data down. So based on how we define those queries, we're essentially getting in a JSON format that same data set that we're pulling down to the device and making available offline for our mapping so that it will work offline. With that in mind, so we have those various plugins that allows us to talk to the different systems, and hopefully that explained it. I can go into more depth, but
So at NIPA, are your users, when they're using disconnected mode, what devices are they using?
For line patrol, it's HP tablet 612 X2 Pro version, and for the operator rounds, we give them its iOS system. The HP tablet is the Windows-based system. The iPads that we're using is iPad Mini 4. Those are the iOS, and all the users are synchronized when they sign in, and then they go offline. When they sign out, they synchronize again, and then they, so when they sign out, they synchronize back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you again for that presentation.